This podcast is made possible by you, the supporters of WPLN and WNXP, Nashville Public Radio.
This is the Nash Villager Podcast. It's January 28th, 2025. The custom of recognizing student athletes with letters began on this day in 1904. It all started at the University of Chicago. The school's first athletic director, Amos Alonzo Stagg, started the practice by admitting seniors on the football team into the Order of the C. To mark that honor, each was given a blanket with a large C. Stagg was a prolific innovator. He invented the dummy that football players used to practice tackling. He was the first to put numbers on player jerseys. He even came up with the idea of gathering in a huddle between football plays. And the year after starting the Order of the C, his team won the national championship. Perhaps that's part of why the customs at that school, including awarding letters, spread nationwide. Everyone wants to be like a winner. I'm Nina Cardona, and this is your daily digest of what's happening around Middle Tennessee from Nashville Public Radio, WPLN News. University athletic letters aren't quite the incentive or honor that they used to be. Not in an era when players have the right to earn money from their name, image, and likeness, or NIL. College sports is still very much adjusting to the relatively new NIL rules that let each student athlete essentially operate as a brand. It's changed a lot of things about the way teams try to build cohesion, about what the athletes expect from their school, or their willingness to stick around instead of transfer. It's definitely impacted recruiting. My nephew's a high school senior and talks with several colleges about playing football. And even down on the Division III level, his NIL is definitely a factor in those conversations. And some say the new pressures of NIL have a role to play in a phenomenon that we're seeing this season at Vanderbilt. Fans rushing the field or court after a big win. This past weekend, for the second week in a row, basketball fans ran onto the floor of Memorial Gym. The week prior, it was to celebrate a victory over cross-state rivals UT. This time, it was after the men's team beat Kentucky 74-69. And the same thing happened during the recent football season when the team beat Alabama. Fans, especially the student section, rushing a field of play to celebrate has become increasingly common. And with that trend comes safety risks, especially if the home team doesn't do a good job of getting the visiting team off the field and into the locker rooms as quickly as possible. It could also end in property damage. After Vanderbilt's football incident last fall, the fans tore down the goalpost and took it on an hour-long parade down West End and Broadway, all the way to Riverfront Park, where they pushed it into the Cumberland. The Nashville Fire Department fished the metal structure out of the water and returned it to the school, and it was cut into pieces, which were quickly auctioned off to fans. Now, last year, the Southeastern Conference adopted new rules meant to discourage the practice. They say a fan stampede in any sport will bring penalties. And over the course of an academic year, if it keeps happening at a given school, the fine for each instance is larger than the one before. So the football season field rush cost Vanderbilt $100,000. A week ago, strike two, the university was fined $250,000. At that time, SEC officials warned Vandy that a repeat would now cost $500,000. And sure enough, on Sunday, the conference made good on that threat. And that's just Vanderbilt. Ahead of one football match this fall between rivals LSU and Alabama, the Associated Press asked the Louisiana coach if he was worried about a win resulting in a field rush and fines. He made it clear he wasn't too concerned. And he made a very interesting point that, in a way, that out-of-control exuberance is good for NIL. It drives up all the players' brand values, and it helps cement a sense among the athletes that they're part of something big, exciting, and worthwhile. As for the safety aspect, officials with the SEC have indicated they're pleased to see most universities are doing a better job of making a field or court rush about as safe as possible. They're coming up with new strategies for quickly ushering referees and the losing team out of the crowd. But that doesn't mean the conference is letting up on the fines, and Vanderbilt is putting in at least a little effort to stop incurring them. The campus newspaper, the Vanderbilt Hustler, reports that athletic director Candace Story-Lee went to the student section in the final minutes of Saturday's game to urge students not to storm the court. Not that it made a difference. In just a few minutes, a pair of Tennessee mothers fighting for a change in the state's juvenile detention system. That's coming up after the newscast.
On This is Nashville, we're taking a journey into the identity of this place we call home. The old and the new, the glitzy and the gritty, the monumental and the human. What makes Nashville tick? What makes it unique? And where are we headed as a city? We're going deeper on the day's news, bringing you dynamic conversations and taking you with us out into the community. Join us weekdays at noon. This is Nashville.
Here's the latest from WPLN News.
Hundreds of protesters gathered on the steps of the Tennessee State House yesterday calling for gun reform. College student Jermaine Cole Jr. addressed the crowd, criticizing the lack of response from lawmakers.
Are they going to be doing anything about the guns? No! No, because they'd rather attack our immigrant and refugee neighbors.
This week, the State House is in special session where the focus will be narrowed to immigration, disaster relief, and school vouchers. Democrat Jason Powell, who represents Antioch, has sent a letter to the governor asking that gun reform be added to the list. Meanwhile, we're learning that Nashville police had prior involvements at the home of the teenager who carried out the fatal attack at Antioch High School. WSMV reports police had been called to the home 4 times in recent years and that 2 guns were removed in 2023. That action appears to be referenced in one of the students' extensive online postings. Police say their latest search in the wake of the shooting did not turn up additional weapons. New details are also emerging that show how anti-hate and extremism researchers had previously seen alarming messages from the teen. ProPublica reports researchers had reported an account belonging to the teen to law enforcement and that he had exchanged messages with a Wisconsin teen who carried out a fatal shooting in December. The Trump administration says immigration and customs enforcement will no longer refrain from entering churches, hospitals, and schools when making immigration arrests. But what does that mean for students in Metro Nashville public schools? The district says it will require legal authorization from immigration agents before they can access students or their school records. If such a request comes up, lawyers for the district would review it before granting the agents access and would inform the parents of any student involved. Spokesperson Sean Brastead says the district does not collect information about its students' immigration status, adding, quote, Metro Nashville Public Schools prioritizes the safety, privacy, and well-being of all students. A local congressman is proposing a constitutional amendment that would allow President Donald Trump to seek a 3rd term. Political scientists are giving the idea little chance of getting the 2/3 vote it would need in both chambers of Congress, as well as ratification by 38 states. Instead, they say it's a symbolic show of loyalty from District 5 Republican Andy Ogles, a vocal Trump supporter who has been embattled. Ogles survived a Republican primary challenge last year and faces ongoing ethics questions over campaign fundraising. The 22nd Amendment currently limits presidents to 2 terms and has been in place since 1951. Several states, including Tennessee, have created new penalties for unlawful camping. Now the law in Kentucky is being challenged over its constitutionality. From our partner station, WFPL, reporter Sylvia Goodman reports a Louisville woman who was cited while in labor is calling for her citation to be dismissed.
In the filing, the woman's lawyers argue that the state statute, which makes street camping illegal, is unconstitutional under 4 amendments to the U.S. Constitution and another 4 sections of the Kentucky Constitution. Body camera footage of the woman's encounter with police became public when Kentucky Public Radio published the video last month. Public Defender Ryan Dissinger says the statute is too vague and includes merely the intent to sleep, not just sleeping or camping itself.
That allows for police officers to just, in their discretion at any point, hassle someone who's homeless under the color of law, which is exactly what the Constitution is supposed to be prohibiting.
The U.S. Supreme Court weighed in on an Oregon city's anti-camping ban last year, saying it is not cruel and unusual. But Dissinger says the Kentucky ban has some key differences.
Intent to sleep is definitely unique from the ordinance that was in Grants Pass in the United States Supreme Court case.
And he says the state Supreme Court has the authority to interpret the Kentucky Constitution as providing more protection to individuals than the federal Constitution does. The Jefferson County Attorney's Office prosecuting the case did not immediately return a request for comment. I'm Sylvia Goodman in Louisville.
TennCare recipients have historically faced higher death rates tied to pregnancy than those with private health insurance. But a recent report shows the gap is widening. WPLN's health reporter Catherine Sweeney tells us more.
The death rate was 3 times higher for TennCare members compared to the privately insured. That's according to Tennessee's annual maternal mortality review. Doctors and researchers offered several explanations to the Tennessee Lookout, a nonprofit news outlet. Like other Medicaid programs, TennCare makes it easier for pregnant people to qualify. But because the state hasn't expanded Medicaid, these patients are more likely to be uninsured in the years leading up to their pregnancy, putting them at higher risk for complications. They also noted Tennessee has rejected bills to make TennCare cover doula services and to make relevant health workers undergo anti-discrimination training. The idea there is Black Tennesseans are twice as likely to die from pregnancy-related causes than their white neighbors, and discrimination often plays a role. Last, the private insurance companies that manage TennCare tend to fare among the worst in the country when it comes to timeliness on prenatal and postnatal care. Catherine Sweeney, WPLN News.
One of the state's longest-running restaurants has announced it will soon close. City Cafe has operated on the public square in Murfreesboro for 124 years. Its owners, the Kellogg family, posted last week on social media that economic conditions make it impossible to continue. The family has run the restaurant since 2014 and narrowly averted closure in 2020 after a similar announcement prompted a community response that allowed them to keep it open.
You'll find more news anytime at WPLN.org.
2 moms who had children locked in solitary confinement in a juvenile detention facility recently visited lawmakers to push for more oversight. Their sons were 15 and 16 when they were kept at Tennessee's Richard L. Bean Juvenile Service Center. A WPLN and ProPublica investigation in 2023 found that the center was illegally locking kids up in cells alone as punishment. And the Bean Center wasn't alone. Multiple county-run juvenile facilities across Tennessee were also in violation of seclusion laws. WPLN's criminal justice reporter Paige Flager joined the moms for a long day at the Capitol.
Before their boys were locked up in the Richard L. Bean Detention Center, the moms say they were so full of life. Big personalities, always laughing and joking. But now?
I mean, he has almost PTSD. He won't even come out of his room.
They say the boys were kept in solitary, sometimes for weeks at a time. They weren't receiving an education, they say, causing them to fall behind. And they say they were bribed with vapes by guards to fight other children.
One thing that hurt me most is that for 3 months, he did not see sun.
That's Araceli's. She and another mom, Michelle, drove from Knoxville to Nashville to meet with lawmakers. We're calling the moms by their middle names because their sons are both awaiting court dates, and they're worried about retaliation from the justice system.
I'm angry that children are taken out of homes and put in there where they're supposed to be okay, and they're abused, and they failed them.
Michelle said she's trying to balance that anger with hope that meeting with lawmakers might create change.
4-7.
The first lawmakers that the women met with was Republican Senator Kerry Roberts.
I'm Kerry. Hi, how are you?
He introduced legislation last year to take oversight of facilities like the Bean Center away from Tennessee's Department of Children's Services. DC has documented violations at the facility for years, but the problems only persisted. A report from as recently as May of 2024 shows that multiple kids told a DCS inspector that children were locked in their rooms for days, sometimes as punishment for fighting. DCS said the Bean Center is currently non-compliant with licensing standards, and the department has issued multiple corrective action plans. Instead of DCS, Roberts wanted a third party to ensure facilities were up to those standards.
If you're keeping kids, you not only need to have transparency and accountability it needs to be amplified. It needs to be exponential.
The bill Roberts introduced did not make it into law. And Roberts told the women similar legislation may not make it through this year either.
Anybody who's paid attention at all knows that it's time that we step up and do something about this. But when everybody's gearing up for battle, the force is against it. They're gonna hire lobbyists and spend money.
That's in part what happened last year. Representative Andrew Farmer gutted the juvenile detention oversight bill. Farmer has ties to private juvenile facility operators in Tennessee. He received campaign donations from the facility operators PAC, and one of the privately run centers is in his district. But he told WPLN at the time that campaign donations don't influence his votes on legislation.
You don't want to sell your soul to the devil because it won't be good.
Farmer sat down with the moms on their visit to the Capitol. Araceli's asked him if he was a Christian.
I mean, we were supposed to be the Bible Belt state. We're supposed to be better. Why other Democratic states are doing better with their juvenile systems and we're falling behind? I mean, that to me, I'm embarrassed. I'm a conservative. I truly believe in what God has called us to do. So we need to do better for them.
Farmer told her he agreed with her.
100%. I am for accountability, especially for those who house our youth and take care of our children.
But when she asked if he would sponsor the legislation on the House side...
Would you sponsor the bill then?
Listen, I don't know exactly where I'm at in my bill limit.
He said he wasn't sure he had room on his legislative plate. Still, he said he would look into what happened at the Bean Center and the legislation that he helped vote down last year.
Well, I give him my word. I'll look into it. I'm not just telling you that.
Well,
I would tell you that if I didn't mean it.
All right, but I'm very good at persistence, so I will be emailing.
That's fine.
And calling.
That's fine.
And if I have to come back, I will save my PTO just to come here.
You are more than welcome to be involved anytime. So,
we just need our kids to have a second chance.
I understand.
And what's happening with them right now is just not fair.
The moms say they won't give up fighting for oversight to make sure other kids won't have to endure what their children did inside juvenile detention. Paige Flager, WPLN News.
For the full investigation on the Bean Center and more of Paige's reporting, you can visit our website, WPLN.org. And we do this roundup of Nashville news every weekday. Please consider subscribing on your favorite podcasting app. And thanks so much to all of you who've left 5 stars, thumbs up, or a review in your app of choice. That little bit of love really does tell the algorithms that more people should hear about us. And of course, everything at WPLN News is listener supported. You can make your donation at WPLN.org. And that's it for today. Thanks so much for listening. Let's make this day a good one, and we'll catch back up tomorrow.